Because he looked like any other slave or beggar, Shasta had little trouble making his way through Tashbaan. Still, he was anxious and uneasy, until he turned a corner and there saw the city gate in front of him. Here he was pressed and jostled a bit, for a good many other people were also going out. It was a slow procession through the gate, then onto a bridge beyond the gate. He followed a road that took him up a short slope covered with gardens. He reached the top, and it was like coming to the end of the world. For all the grass stopped, quite suddenly, a few feet before him, and there was something he'd never seen the like of. A great yellowish-grey thing, flat as a calm sea, and stretching for miles. On the far side of it were huge blue things, lumpy but with jagged edges, and some of them with white tops. It was the desert and the northern mountains. But before that, about 5 minutes' walk away, on his left, were great masses of mouldering stone, shaped like giant beehives, but a little narrower. They were just as Bree had described them, the tombs of the ancient kings. By the time Shasta reached them, they looked black and grim, for the sun was now setting right behind them. He looked for any sign of his friends, but could see hardly anything. He expected he would find them on the far side of the farthest tomb away from the city. There were about 12 tombs, each with low arched doorways that opened into absolute blackness. They were dotted in no kind of order, so that it took a long time going round this one and going round that one before you could be sure that you'd looked round every side of every tomb. This was what Shasta had to do. There was nobody there.
What's that? Don't be a silly little coward. They're closing the gates. So where are they? Either they're shut up in Tashbaan for the night, or else they've gone on without me. It's just the sort of thing Aravis would do. But Bree wouldn't. Would he? Oh, I'd rather not spend the night here alone. What? Oh, a cat. Here, kitty kitty. Here, kitty kitty. I suppose you're not a talking cat. Of course not. Where are you going? A little company is better than none. Wait!
The cat led him through the tombs and out on the desert side of them. There it sat down bolt upright with its tail curled round its feet and its face set towards the desert and towards Narnia and the north, as still as if it were watching for some enemy. Shasta lay down beside it with his back against the cat and his face towards the tombs. Because if one is nervous, there's nothing like having your face towards the danger and having something warm and solid at your back. Very soon he fell asleep, though even in his dreams he kept on wondering what had happened to Bree and Aravis and Hwin.
Huh? What was that? Oh, perhaps it's only a nightmare. I hope it's not more lions. Whatever they are, there's more than one of them. And they're coming nearer.
I suppose that if Shasta had been an entirely sensible boy, he would have gone back through the tombs nearer to the river where there were houses, and wild beasts would be less likely to come. But to go back through the tombs would mean going back past those dark openings in the tombs, and what might come out of them. It may have been silly, but Shasta felt he'd rather risk the wild beasts. Then as the cries came nearer and nearer, he began to change his mind. He was just going to run for it, when suddenly, between him and the desert, a huge animal bounded into view. As the moon was behind it, it looked quite black, and Shasta didn't know what it was. except that it had a very big, shaggy head and went on 4 legs. It didn't seem to have noticed Shasta, for it suddenly stopped, turned its head towards the desert, and let out a roar which echoed through the tombs and seemed to shake the sand under Shasta's feet. The cries of the other creatures suddenly stopped, and he thought he could hear feet scampering away. Then the great beast turned to examine Shasta.
It's a lion. I know it's a lion. I'm done. I hope it doesn't hurt much. There it comes. I can't bear to look.
But instead of teeth and claws, he only felt something warm lying down at his feet. And when he opened his eyes again, he said,
The cat? I must have dreamed the entire thing. Dream or not, I'll never do anything nasty to a cat again, as long as I live. I did once, you know. I threw stones at a half-starved, mangy old stone. Ow! Hey, stop that! You scratched me! What's got into you?
The cat stared at him with big, green, unwinking eyes. And he at once lay down again, back to back with the cat, as they had been at the beginning of the night. The warmth spread all over him. Then he dozed off.
Gone to. It's awfully hot.
Shasta, very thirsty, looked out at the desert. It was blindingly white, and though there was a murmur of noises from the city behind, the city gates had been opened several hours, everything was perfectly still. The next job, clearly, was to get something to eat and drink. Shasta trotted back through the tombs and wondered how he could ever have been afraid of them. He went down into the cultivated land by the river's side. There were a few people about, but not many, so he had no difficulty in doing a little raiding, as Bree called it. He climbed over a garden wall, and the results were 3 oranges, a melon, a fig or 2, and a pomegranate. After that he went down to the riverbank, but not too close to the bridge, and had a drink. Then, worried that he might miss the others, he raced back to the tombs. Like most days when you're alone and waiting for something, this day seemed about 100 hours long. Shasta wondered about the Narnians and Corinth. A dozen plans went through his head, just in case Bree, Hwin, and Aravis had already left without him. He finally fixed on the worst plan of all: to wait till it was dark, and then go back to the river and steal as many melons as he could carry, and set out for the north alone. Before the sun set, and after the city gates were closed for the night, something happened. Shasta was sitting in the shadow of one of the tombs when he looked up and saw 2 horses coming towards him. Then his heart gave a great leap, for he recognized them as Bree and Hwin. But the next moment his heart went down into his toes. There was no sign of Aravis. The horses were being led by a strange man, an armed man, pretty handsomely dressed, like an upper slave in a great family. Bree and Hwin were no longer disguised as pack horses, but saddled and bridled.
It's a trap! Someone has caught Aravis, and perhaps they've tortured her, and she's given the whole thing away. Oh, now they're coming to catch me too. Oh, I do wish I knew what had happened.
So Shasta hid behind the tomb, looking out every few minutes and wondering what to do. The stranger led Bree and Hwin to the shadow of a nearby tomb, where Shasta could see them clearly. Then, to Shasta's open-mouthed surprise, Aravis arrived, dressed not in her peasant's disguise, but in the fine clothes of a superior house slave. How Aravis, Bree and Hwin wound up in such good condition was more than Shasta could guess. But he didn't move, for fear that something was amiss. Aravis approached the stranger and said,
You can go back to your mistress now. Here is money for your pains.
To hear is to obey.
Oh, Hwin, Bree, it worked! It worked!
Thanks be to the line it did.
And here comes Shasta.
Well, I say, this is quite a reunion. And how have you gone from being a peasant and 2 pack horses to this?
There's no time to explain now. I've learned that Prince Rapidash is mounting an expedition of 200 men and their horses to cross the desert and attack the city of Anvard in the unsuspecting Arkan land, and then Narnia itself.